Dear brothers and sisters, queridísimos hermanos y hermanas, bien chers frères et sœurs, liebe Brüder und Schwestern,
Дорогие братья и сестры, 亲爱的兄弟姊妹们
fratelli e sorelle carissimi, habemus
Dixo proudly presents the ApeCoin DAO Special Council Election 07-2024 with candidate
GM, I'm Mohammed Ezeldin. I'm the head of tokenomics and Amoco brands, and I'm running for ApeCoin's Special Council. A little bit about myself. I'm a mathematician and educator by background. I've been in the Web3 or crypto space since 2017. I've been trying to solve the challenge that is token economics and finding sustainable token economies and governance since 2018. And really, I'm here to try and add as much value to the ApeCoin ecosystem as possible. Looking forward to diving in deeper together.
And what's the reason you're running for special counsel?
A great question. For me, having worked on ApeCoin pre-release and seen the evolution of the ApeCoin DAO, I believe that governance is in need of an upgrade. I believe that the tokenomics and staking is in need of an upgrade. With ApeChain coming into effect extremely soon, having my very unique skill set will be imperative to making sure that the ApeCoin ecosystem can scale. And really seeing the challenges faced within ApeCoin right now, you can argue are challenges that the majority of DAOs out there would love to have in terms of the number of active users, in terms of the size of the treasury, even with the price of where ApeCoin is at now. But really having someone who has a deeper understanding of what it's like to build ecosystems, to deal with multiple different moving parts, to try and find the solutions to that, again, is a skill set that I feel I have. And where ApeCoin is at now, over the course of the next year, we really need to double down on tokenomics, on governance, to allow ApeCoin to evolve to the next stage.
So my next question would be, it's June 2025, you've been elected to special counsel. Where do you see the ApeCoin as an amount?
From a price, I guess let's finish on the price and maybe let's start on the difference. By then, ApeChain will be live. So really what we'll see is not just games. I know games is the big narrative for ApeChain, but ApeCoin is the coin of culture, and you'd want to see memes, we'd want to see different gamifications, you want to see games, you want to see governance, we'd want to see different kinds of staking, we'd want to see reputation on chain as well. And really what we want to see is a high TVL within the ApeChain ecosystem, a large number or a large user base, shall I say. And all of that will then have the knock-on effect that the price of ApeCoin will be higher. How high? I don't like to do price predictions because more often than not, they're usually wrong. But hopefully not where it is now, and in a place where we can have maybe some of the staunchest of, or maybe I'll rephrase that, we can have some of the people who are very outwardly spoken towards spending on AIPs will be happy. And they'll be happy that we're spending on AIPs because the value of ApeChain is higher, the market cap is higher, the treasury is worth more. So that's hopefully where we'll see it, where essentially I'm going to nick a tagline from Trump, but we're going to make Ape great again.
Perfect. I love that. And the two questions I see popping up a lot on the spaces. The first one is, are you going to commit full time to the special counsel and the DAO?
So yes, I will commit the time that's necessary for this. What's amazing with my day job, if you like, is I have a very strong team and we're expanding that team. So this has been taken into account to alleviate me of as much time as is needed to work on the ApeCoin ecosystem. Okay.
And the second question that pops out a lot also is the transparency and the accountability of the DAO and the AIPs of approved and the administrative review and the time that it takes to go into live AIPs.
So that's an interesting one because depending on who you speak to, you hear very different feedback on experiences. Some AIPs go through the review quicker, some AIPs are more challenging. My understanding so far is legal is an aspect of that as well. So when you're dealing with legal, making sure if an AIP legally makes sense or not. I also feel we have initiatives that are going live like APU, which is all about educating AIP writers to make sure that AIPs are much closer to their final form versus maybe a lot of AIPs have the right intention, but maybe are poorly written or have to go through a much longer review process. So they're at a point where they're meaningful. So I think there does need to be more openness around that. But I also feel that the special counsel have been elected to do a job, and sometimes you have to trust the special counsel, and you have to trust, again, the elected representatives to be making the best decision. But definitely having more openness around what that process looks like I feel is necessary, especially in Web3, where everything is on chain and everything is visible. It would make sense having more visibility on what that actually looks like.
Yeah. And how about accountability of approved IPs?
This is an interesting one. I was actually, with my Open Campus hat on, which is the education arm of Animoca Brands. And I guess just to reference, I was a high school teacher for 10 years and prior to pivoting into Web3 full time. So education, that's something that's very important to me. And having worked close with the governance working group and All City, this is something that's been raised already. It's how can we measure the success of AIPs? And I feel if we take a step back, one of the biggest challenges we have is each AIP is independent. It's very modular. We haven't looked to build an ecosystem of different AIPs coming together to work together to have success. So I feel prior to the accountability side, there needs to be a more structured sort of funnel for AIPs to go in. And in the same way, maybe there's a portfolio company and you have portfolio managers having something similar. So you have people who are responsible. We sort of have this with the working groups, but maybe the working groups are a lot more horizontal across the ecosystem, where we might need some accountability in specific verticals, where we're putting AIPs that make sense together. So we're building together to foster positive network effects, which then have a positive impact on price if done properly. And then you truly be able to measure the success or failure of an AIP. But I feel looking at something independently is probably the wrong way to look at an AIP, seeing if it's been successful or not, unless it's an AIP that's requested a huge sum of money. And what's huge sum of money will vary from one person to another. So just having consensus on what that looks like, and then maybe treating AIPs differently depending on what the desired outcome is.
And would you do that retroactively? I mean, going back to the first approved AIPs?
Absolutely. Like I'd look through, I don't know if it started, but looking through all of the AIPs retrospectively, not just those who have passed, but also those who have failed. There's been a handful of AIPs that I thought were actually good for the ecosystem, but have maybe been voted down because they're asking for too much ape, because we haven't seen the impact this would make. So understanding what we have, understanding maybe what we've missed, and also what's coming, and how we can really begin to design sustainable ecosystems around that, and actually baking in ApeChain as well. And the impact maybe some of these AIPs, when we didn't have ApeChain up and coming, now that we do have ApeChain round the corner, would this AIP make sense? And would the author of the AIP still be open to fulfilling that or putting up for a vote again, if it makes sense?
Yes, definitely makes sense. Obviously, I mean, everyone is very excited about ApeChain. You see it as a really big game changer in the ecosystem.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, like normally we see the token as the glue that holds the ecosystem together, but really what ApeChain gives us is the platform to be able to build. And for all of these things, or all of the AIPs that have passed, they have somewhere to live. We don't have a home right now. I mean, the DAO is home, but we need to expand the home. And ApeChain, it gives us a new lease of life. It gives us a new narrative. It's really an opportunity to bring the community together again. Like for me, the biggest challenge in the ApeCoin ecosystem is how fragmented and fractured all of the different parties are, if you like. We didn't have that at the height of the last cycle, which is part of the reason why like the floor price on your BAYC, your MAYC, even your kennels was extremely high, which is why ApeCoin ran to like $24, $25, because the inherent belief in the ecosystem was there. It's an attention economy in Web3, and we had attention. We've lost that attention right now. So we really have to get back to finding that attention in a meaningful way, and ApeChain allows us to do that.
Another question which really pops out a lot is, if you're not elected, are you going to be really involved in the DAO?
So as of now, I'm already contributing from behind the scenes, again with APU, also working closely with the Horizon Labs team in terms of trying to onboard a lot of the projects that we're working with, sort of in my day job, if you like, to onboard into ApeChain. So there's a lot of there's a lot of input that's happening behind the scenes already. And having gone through this experience and really felt a lot of the love from the community, I'd probably double down and see how much more that I can help. And it would probably then be as an AIP author, that then writing proposals through to be engaged on the tokenomics level and on the governance level as well, in terms of redefining what that looks like.
So let me ask you, mathematician to mathematician, when you discovered this new world, this universe, what happened inside of you in your brain? What did you see in your brain?
So 2017, I was sent the Bitcoin white paper. I read it and it blew my mind. It solved like a Byzantine, probably how maybe some people have seen it as a Byzantine general problem. It's probably the most basic layer without getting too mathematical. And for those that are not familiar, what the Byzantine general problem is, again, it's from the Byzantine era. Back then, they didn't have technology and they'd have an issue where if you were surrounding a castle on four sides and you were invading and you were going to attack, how can you send communication out to the other three sides to let them know, for example, let's attack at dawn? And then how can they send communication back? And it sounds trivial, but you might have one side is a bad actor. You might have messengers would have been on horseback going from one camp to the next. What if one of these messengers were caught on the way there? And then you also need a reverse message saying, yes, we've received the message. So for me, this blew my mind. And so then I started buying Bitcoin and then I discovered ICOs and I sort of, the money, all of that sort of distracted me, if you like. And I rode that wave up and down. I got burnt hard by mid 2018 and it was like, okay, why sort of back to fundamentals? What's the purpose of this technology? Why have I lost these funds? And that sort of made me double down on my conviction of the technology, but also realize there was a very big need for something called tokenomics.
The word tokenomics is like a little scary for normies or Web2 people to go into this whole new universe. How can we make it more appealing to normies to get into Web3 and to get to the ApeCoin DAO?
I think for normies to come in to the ecosystem, maybe they don't need an understanding of tokenomics. I feel there are other, maybe more low-hanging fruit, like Marcoms, for example. Again, marketing there's a lot of people out there who have studied something to do with marketing. So maybe that could be an easier route in. We've sort of forgotten the roots where we were using the IP of the different Bored Ape assets, Mutant Ape assets, to launch different kinds of businesses. And I feel, again, that's another low-hanging fruit to onboard normies, that you have IP. And with this IP, you actually have a large community base that can take part in your business, if you know what I mean. If it's bored and hungry and people turning up on location just because it's run by an ape and the IP around it is an ape. If it's something brand new that maybe isn't a physical location, that's a new business type. I feel that's a lot easier for people to understand. On the tokenomic side of things, I mean, it's what is tokenomics. We all have different interpretations of what tokenomics is. To some people, it's the same as what it was maybe in 2017 or 2018, where it's a pie chart and a distribution schedule. And if that's what you believe tokenomics is, then again, you're on the ground floor. That's a layer of tokenomics. The best way I can explain it is as I have two young kids, so I've seen Shrek, and in Shrek, he makes it comparable to an onion. And I'd say tokenomics is like an onion. There are so many different layers within that. So we spoke about like the allocations, the pie chart and the spreadsheet. We need the supply and demand. We need to understand the value accrual loops. We need to understand governance. We need to understand what's off-chain. We need to understand what scaling looks like. We need to understand the tech stack that we're using and the impact that has. So there is a lot. Again, these are just like probably a big chunk of layers out there, and then there are a few more that I've missed out. But it begins to give you an idea. We need to understand the personas, so the different user types we have. And it's like, well, now you have all of these layers of complexity. Where do you start? How can I put it? Like a person or a man is nothing but their word, and your word is your bond, and reputation is everything, especially in this space. So it's about us making sure that like my reputation is as clean as possible, but also not because I have anything to hide, but more so I've worked so hard in my life to be where I am today. And again, I don't come from like a fintech background or something. It's like I was a high school educator. Like I've been in the trenches, if you like. So being in the position I am today, being able to make meaningful change that will impact this, like the future generations at scale, or at least we hope it will impact the future generations at scale, is the most liberating that you can actually be, because you know you're having an impact, a genuine impact, not just on a small group of people, but on a much larger group of people. And that's the power of the technology. And I think once people understand that, that this technology, when we say it gives us ownership, it's not just ownership from a financial value. It's also ownership over the decisions that you make. And that's why DAOs and governance are so important, because they're the frameworks that allow us to self-organize. And we see DAOs, some DAOs launch and they're not decentralized. We can't call them DAOs, but we have to start somewhere. It's very difficult without reputation to be fully decentralized. And I think this is a layer, also sort of bringing it back to ApeCoin and what's coming. I feel this is a layer that's missing, especially with where the governance is now. Token weighted voting, it's a very good starting point, because one token, one vote allows people to come in, and it's a low barrier to entry. I'm a big fan of quadratic voting, but I also know that the more, if you introduce layers of complexity too soon, you have a fall off rate because of the friction that's introduced. So it's about how can we begin to layer in the right layers of complexity to make sure that actually we're optimizing what we're doing, versus just being fancy for the sake of it. And then already, I mean, we have in general, versus other DAOs, the participation is higher, but governance in general, especially at the rate of what it is, where there's like 2-week cycles, it can be very exhausting. And without, it's like there's like, if there's 3 of us having a discussion about, I don't know, about legal, me and you are mathematicians and the third person is a lawyer. If we have 1 vote each, we can outvote the lawyer, but that's their area of expertise. Surely their vote should be worth more than our vote because they have that expertise. But what we've seen is it turns into sometimes a popularity contest. Again, because everything is on chain and apparent. You want to vote a certain way for clout versus not to be seen differently. So I think there's been so much advancements and steps taken forward within the ApeCoin ecosystem, and there's lots of learning. I actually think it's been a huge success so far. Just looking at where we are today, given like how many DAOs can we actually say have been successful, and it becomes very difficult to find anything. We're well on our way to being successful, but this period of time is super important to make sure the next steps that are taken enable us to go to the next level, versus just being stuck maybe in this loop of half the community want to spend money, half the community doesn't want to spend money, and we're just arguing about why are we spending, why are we not spending, why is ApeCoin still at the price point it is, why haven't we broken the top 100 market cap, etc., etc. It's like we need to keep using this momentum, and we have decent momentum right now. Like, people are starting to talk about Ape again, and it's how can we use that again to get the positive network effects, and ApeChain is a catalyst for it. Like, I've not seen this group of people this excited maybe since ApeFest last year. So it's taken something big to reignite the excitement factor. But yeah, one step at a time.
If you're elected, who would you like to be elected with?
It's a challenging question because all of the special council nominees will bring value to the ApeCoin, to the ApeCoin DAO, shall I say. So maybe ask me that after the elections, and then I can give you like once I've had a look under the hood to understand what's needed. I mean, look, you've got a couple of guys, Ernest and Von as well, who have been super active in terms of the AIPs and responding. You have Aaron, who's always putting a smile on people's faces. You have Jason J as well, who's again elite apes in Hong Kong, active member of the ecosystem. He's a businessman as well, so understands business. You have Layla, who's a newcomer to the block with a very extensive marketing background, and you can argue alongside the marketing comms, like, we need that skill set. So it's a tough one. For me, it doesn't make a difference who's elected, because there'll be value added to the ApeCoin DAO. But really, to people listening, it's what do you think is the most valuable for where we're at today? And you should probably let your vote be decided by that versus a popularity contest or who you're friends with. It's what skill sets do we need over the course of the next year to make sure ApeCoin can thrive in the future. And that should really be the compass you're using to point you towards which candidate you're voting for.
So, can you give us a last message to send us off?
DAO is about empowering each and every one of us, and you have the power in terms of the tokens that you hold to vote, to make a difference. Please make a thoughtful decision on who you're voting for, and send your vote my way if you really feel I have the skill set that's needed to help take Ape to the next level. And if not, I'll support you anyway. Thank you very much.
Powered by Dixo and ApeCoin.